Every Squid Game player made a fatal mistake, one wrong move that cost them everything. Some hesitated, some trusted the wrong person, and some were just unlucky. Today, we're breaking down the biggest mistakes that got players killed, starting with one of the most heartbreaking betrayals. If there was ever a player who didn't deserve to die, it was Ali Abdul. Loyal, selfless, and maybe a little too trusting. His kindness was exactly what got him killed. From the moment he saved Gi-hun in red light, green light, Ali proved he wasn't just here to survive. He actually cared about people. He helped his team win tug of war, worked alongside the others, and believed that if they stuck together, they could make it through. But Squid Game doesn't reward kindness, it punishes it. And that's exactly what happened in episode 6, The Marbles Game. Ali teamed up with Cho Sung-woo, thinking they'd find a way out together.
I think you and I could really win the money.
But the moment he heard the rule only one of them could survive, he should have known. We should have known. But Ali, he believed in Sang-woo, and that was his biggest mistake. At first, Sang-woo acted like he was helping.
Hey, come on, if you help me, then there's a way that both of us can live.
Buying time while Ali searched for a way to win. But then came the moment we were all screaming at our screens. Ali, don't do it! Don't hand him the marbles. But Ali did. He let his guard down, he trusted Sang-woo, and in the end he was left standing there, empty-handed as his so-called friend walked away. And the worst part? He realized too late. That final look on Ali's face, the mix of confusion, betrayal, and heartbreak, that's what made this death hurt the most. He never saw it coming, and honestly, he should have. If Squid Game has one rule, it's never trust anyone. But if you thought this was brutal, just wait, because the next player's mistake didn't just get them killed, it was pure revenge. If there's one thing Squid Game teaches you, it's that what goes around, comes around. And no one proved that better than Jung Deok-soo and Han Min-yo. Deok-soo was ruthless from the start, stealing food, killing players, doing whatever it took to survive. Min-yo, on the other hand, knew how to manipulate and play the long game. She stuck by him, flattered him, made him think she was loyal until he kicked her aside the second she wasn't useful, and she never forgot it.
What's wrong? Are you sad? Why? Is your connection dead?
Fast forward to the glass bridge game. Deok-soo refuses to move forward.
Anyone want to get across? Well, you better go first then!
Paralyzed with fear, holding everyone back. That's when Manyo steps in. She walks up smiling, and Deok-soo instantly knows he's screwed. One last whispered,
You betrayed me. Now you're going to die.
And she drags them both down. That's karma. They both thought they could outplay each other, but in the end, they took each other out. But sometimes playing the game isn't enough. Some players try to cheat it, and for the next contestant, breaking the rules cost him everything. Player 111, Byung-gi, had a secret advantage, one no other contestant had. While everyone else was playing blind, he had inside information. The corrupt guards were secretly feeding him details about the upcoming games in exchange for his help, harvesting organs from dead players. Yeah, disgusting. But for a while it worked. He breezed through every round, never second-guessing a single decision. Other players struggled, but he always seemed to know exactly what to do. And the craziest part? No one even suspected him. If he had just kept his head down, he probably could have made it to the end. But then, the pressure got to him. Paranoid and exhausted, he snapped when the guards failed to give him the next game's details. In a fit of rage, he killed one of them and tried to flee, but he didn't get far. Cornered in the Sugar Honeycombs game hall, he was executed on the spot by the frontman. His body, along with the traitorous guards, was later hung in the stairwell as a brutal warning. The game must always be fair. If there's one lesson here, it's that nobody is bigger than the game. Try to cheat it, it will cheat you back. But if you thought this was brutal, the next mistake is even worse. In Squid Game, every second matters, and for player 017, waiting just 1 second too long cost him his life. The glass bridge was terrifying. One wrong step, and you're gone. But 017 had an edge. He was a glassmaker. He could actually tell which panels were safe.
I can tell the panels apart.
You can tell?
I used to make glass for over 30 years.
For the first time, someone had a real chance to beat the game. And then he hesitated. The others were getting impatient, but Sang-woo had no time for waiting. With the clock running out, he shoved 017 forward, forcing a decision that wasn't his to make. The glass shattered. He was gone. And just like that, the player who should have survived was taken out by someone more desperate. But the next player's mistake, it wasn't about fear or hesitation, it was something much harder to watch. Ji-young, player 240, wasn't in it to win. She had no family, no future, nothing waiting for her outside. But when she met Kang Se-byuk, she finally had something she never had before, a reason to care. Then came the marbles game. At first, they just talked. No rushing, no panic, because neither of them wanted to play a game that meant one of them had to die. But time was running out, and that's when Ji-young made her decision. She threw her marble away. She didn't fight. She didn't try to win. She just smiled and told Se-byuk,
I have nothing. You got a reason to get out of this place, but I don't.
She never even looked back when the gun went off.
Thank you for playing with me.
Ji-young's death was different. It wasn't forced on her, she made the choice. But the reality? She could have fought. She could have won, and that's what makes it so tragic. But the next player? He made his mistake long before the marbles even started. When the contestants were told to pick a partner for the marbles game, most assumed they'd be working with their partner. Player 069 chose his wife, and that choice sealed both their fates. The moment the rules were revealed that only one of them could survive, everything changed. What was supposed to be a team effort became a death sentence. We don't see most of their game, but we don't have to. The aftermath says everything. Player 069 won. His wife didn't, and the weight of that broke him. Back in the bedroom, he was desperate, trying to convince players to end the game.
If 9 of us agree we can get out of here, don't any of you want to leave this horrible place? Anyone wants to go? Stand up, let's get out of here.
No one listened, and that night, he took his own life. He made it further than her, but what was the point? He had nothing left. In the end, the guilt crushed him before the game ever could. Some mistakes in Squid Game kill you right away. Others make you live with it first. But the next player, she barely had time to realize her mistake before it was over. Kang Mi-na, player 196, was barely in the game before she was gone. She stepped onto the field for red light, green light, just like everyone else. She had no idea what was coming. Then a bee landed on her. That tiny, meaningless distraction? It cost her everything. She flinched. The doll turned. The shot fired.
I just moved, didn't I?
First player down. There wasn't even time to react. She didn't get tricked, she didn't hesitate, she just moved. And in Squid Game, one movement is all it takes. Some players suffer, some fight. Mi-na never even had a chance. But the next player, his mistake wasn't bad luck, it was blind loyalty. And in Squid Game, loyalty can be just as deadly. From the moment he entered the game, player 256, Gyeong-soo attached himself to the wrong people. He sided with Thanos, player 230, and his crew, a group that thrived on violence, intimidation, and chaos. And he followed them without question. At first it worked, but what Gyeong-soo never realized? In this game, no one is truly on your side. During the Mingle game, players had to form new teams. Gyeong-soo assumed he was safe. He'd been loyal, right? But when the time came, Thanos and the others abandoned him without a second thought. Just like that, he was out. He wasn't betrayed, he was discarded. Gyeong-soo's biggest mistake was believing loyalty mattered in a game where survival comes first. And by the time he realized it, it was already over. But some players don't just make mistakes, they create enemies. And for the next one, that turned out to be a fatal decision. From the moment he stepped into the game, Thanos, player 230, was a menace. Loud, reckless, and with no morals, he didn't just want to win, he wanted to dominate. He bullied weaker players, picked fights for fun, and made sure everyone knew his name. And for a while, it worked. But what he didn't realize was the more chaos he created, the more enemies he made. And no one hated him more than Lee Myung-gi, player 333. Their rivalry started before the games even began. Thanos had been a rapper, Myung-gi a crypto influencer. One bad investment ruined both of them, and Thanos never let it go. He blamed Myung-gi for his downfall, and inside the game, he made sure to make his life hell. He mocked him, humiliated him, attacked him during mealtime just because he could. And then came the fight. It started in the bathroom, just another one of Thanos' power moves, but this time, he picked the wrong person to mess with. 1 second, he was throwing punches. The next, he was on the ground, stabbed in the throat with a fork. No second chances, no way out. Just a mistake he couldn't take back. Some players lose because they hesitate. Thanos lost because he never knew when to stop. But the next player, her mistake had nothing to do with violence, but it was just as deadly. Player 095, Kim Young-mi, had played the game carefully, forming a solid team with Cho Hyun-ju and a few others to increase her chances of survival. When the mingle game began, she thought she was safe. Her group had 6 players and they ran toward a room together. Then everything fell apart. As they rushed inside, Young-mi was shoved to the ground in the chaos. Hyun-ju tried to pull her in, but Lee Myung-gi forced the door shut before time ran out. Young-mi was left staring through the hole in the door, helpless as her friends watched from the other side. And then the gunshot. She collapsed, her death shaking the entire group. Hyun-ju was devastated, blaming Myung-gi for leaving her behind, but he didn't back down. He argued that without his choice, their whole team would have died. And whether that was true or not, Young-mi was still gone. She didn't hesitate. She didn't break the rules. She was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But some players in Squid Game knew exactly what they were signing up for. And the next one, he was the reason they were all there. For years, the recruiter scouted desperate people, pulling them into Squid Game with nothing but a slap and a card. To him, the poor were expendable, sacrifices for a system that rewarded the strong. The recruiter later confronts Gi-hun at his place, where he expresses his curiosity in how Gi-hun was able to win the Squid Games before. Gi-hun didn't back down. He mocked him, called him a dog to the real masterminds. The recruiter, pushed too far, pulled out a revolver for one last game. Russian roulette. The rules were simple.
It's called Russian roulette. Usually you put a single bullet into the revolver, give it a spin, and pull the trigger.
But this time, there was a twist.
We take our turns like we're supposed to, except we don't spin it each round. That way we know the bullet will be fired by round 6 at the latest.
The cylinder wouldn't spin between shots. Every round made death more certain. At first, the recruiter toyed with him, smirking, dragging it out, savoring the control. But when Gi-hun refused to break, when he embraced the game instead of fearing it, everything changed. With only one bullet left, Gi-hun threw the challenge back at him.
The only thing you'd have to do now is pull that trigger once, and you could kill me right here.
Instead of pulling the trigger on Gi-hun, he turned the gun on himself. One final shot. Game over. For all his control, he forgot one rule. Everyone is just a player in the end. And speaking of Gi-hun, he may have won Squid Game, but that doesn't mean he was untouchable, because throughout the games, he came dangerously close to dying, more times than you think. Click here to see every time Gi-hun barely escaped death.
Almi M17 इसका जो प्रोसेसर इसमें लगा हुआ है PCB MTK का लगा हुआ है और ब्लॉक अननाउन कॉलर इसमें जो आप किसी का नंबर सेव करेंगे उस पर आप इमोजीज वगैरह भी लगा सकते हैं। कॉल रिकॉर्डिंग भी है। 1000 नंबर इसमें आप सेव कर सकते हैं। PT से प्रूव है। इसमें ये 4 कलर हैं और 1.8 इसका डिस्प्ले है। स्मार्ट कैमरा, ब्लूटूथ टॉर्च, ऑडियो वीडियो प्लेयर, AV मतलब ऑडियो वीडियो प्लेयर, FM रेडियो और 32 GB का इसमें कार्ड इंस्टॉल होता है लगता है और इंटरनेट भी है जो आप किसी दुकान से परचेज़ कर सकते हैं।